Hello everyone. Today, I'm bringing you a deeply touching love story between a single mother, Lytieuca, and CEO Hùng, a journey not only of love, but also of healing and faith in miracles. Lytieuca is a resilient single mother who has endured many hardships in the past. She lives quietly with her young daughter, lytutien, in a modest rental house in the peaceful countryside. Life is far from easy, but Tieu's innocent eyes and joyful laughter are the light that keeps Lytieuca going each day. Then fate brings her to meet Hùng, a successful businessman, outwardly cold but carrying deep emotional scars within. Their love doesn't arrive with grand gestures or drama. Instead, it blossoms gently like a breeze, quietly soothing the wounds both have long carried. Can this love help them heal? Can hearts that were once broken open up again? And can little Tieu finally have the whole family she's always deserved? Follow this heartwarming journey in the upcoming episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss a moment of Tieu, and CEO Hùng emotional path to love and healing. Lytieuca, the girl who once dreamed of a simple, peaceful home, only to have that very dream drown her in bitterness. Born into a poor family, Lythica never had the right to choose her own path. At a young age, she was forced into marriage with a stranger, a union devoid of love or hope, merely a cold transaction between two families. She had hoped to build happiness from nothing, but life gave her no such chance. The man she called husband was a drunk, a gambler, and a brute. On the day Lythica gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, instead of receiving joy, she was met with senseless beatings. To him, having a daughter was a disgrace. He hurled insults, struck her without mercy, and never once looked at his child. Every effort she made to save the marriage was crushed by his shouting, the stench of alcohol, and the bruises that marked her body. Then one day, in a fit of rage, he threw her and the baby out, penniless, homeless. And as if fate hadn't been cruel enough, Lythica soon discovered she was pregnant with their second child. Summoning the last of her dignity, she returned to ask for shelter, only to hear him sneer. "Get lost. My girlfriend is pregnant with a son." That was the last time she cried in front of him. Carrying her daughter in one arm and cradling her unborn child with the other, Lythica walked into the freezing night. She didn't know where to go, didn't know how she would survive the next day, but she knew one thing: she had to live. For her little girl. And for the tiny life growing inside her. What followed were days of hunger, despair, and survival. She and her daughter barely had enough to eat, sleeping under market awnings, begging for instant noodles and bottles of leftover water. On many nights, she clutched her child tightly, her empty stomach growling, tears soaking her tangled hair. Yet in her daughter's eyes, those innocent eyes of little Tieu, there was always a flicker of light. And that tiny flicker was the only thing that gave Lythica the strength to rise again, day after day. Just when life seemed to have shut every door of hope, it was in that very darkest moment that fate brought Lytieuca to him, Hùng, a man unlike any other. Hùng was a successful businessman, composed, distant, and seemingly aloof from the world. But behind that calm, cold exterior was a heart full of kindness. He met Lythica as she was holding her child, humbly queuing for a free meal. Her weary face, her sorrowful eyes that still sparkled with a mother's love, something about her made it impossible for him to look away. At first, Lythica was guarded. She wasn't used to compassion, much less dared to dream that someone like him could truly care. But Hùng was not a man of fleeting sympathy. He quietly began to help, arranging food, shelter, and even prenatal checkups for her. Never once did he ask about the baby's father. To him, it didn't matter. What mattered was her, Lythica. A woman who deserved to be loved. Lythica initially refused his kindness. Not because she wasn't moved, but because she felt unworthy. She was poor, abandoned, pregnant, with a small child. How could someone like her ever stand beside a man like him? But Hùng didn't give up. He waited. Patiently. Always there, a silent strength, a safe embrace she had never known. And so, love arrived, gently, quietly. There were no grand declarations. No bouquets of red roses. Just simple, tender gestures, like the times he shielded her from the rain, bought porridge when she had morning sickness, or sat by little Tieu Han's bed reading bedtime stories. He never called Tieu Han your daughter, he always said, our daughter. Lythieuca once cried over those words. For the first time in years, someone truly saw her. Not for her past. Not for her status. But simply, for who she was. Even with her pregnancy, Hùng never hesitated. He accompanied her to doctor visits, picked out tiny clothes for the unborn child. To him, this baby wasn't just hers, it was joy to come, a part of the family he wished to build with her. That love, quiet yet profound. Not perfect, but pure. It didn't begin with logic, it came straight from the heart. To give Lythieuca and her daughter a place they could truly call home, Hùng did something no one expected. He began building a small farm. Not a luxurious villa. Not a fancy apartment in the city. Hùng understood that Lythieuca didn't need anything extravagant, she simply needed a warm roof, a place to grow vegetables, raise chickens, and nurture the dreams that once withered in poverty. The land was barren at first, an abandoned rice field near a hillside, overlooked by everyone. But under Hung's hands, a man once only familiar with contracts and numbers, it slowly transformed into a true sanctuary. He hired bulldozers to level the ground, enriched the soil, and built a simple row of wooden houses with crimson-tiled roofs. On one side was a small garden where Lythieuca could grow clean vegetables, mustard greens, lettuce, herbs, tomatoes, enough to feed her little family each day. On the other side, a modest coop housed a few hens and ducks, laying fresh eggs for little Tieu Han. And in the center of the yard stood a clear water well, where every morning, mother and daughter could draw water to wash their faces and water the plants. Hùng never let her work alone. He toiled beside her, hands muddied and clothes soaked with sweat, learning how to build trellises for gourds, while she taught him how to make vegetable beds. On sunny days, they dried straw together. On rainy days, he held an umbrella as she checked the seedlings. He even hired extra workers to help speed up the construction, determined to have everything ready before her due date. To Hùng, it wasn't just a farm. It was the very first home he built with his own hands, for the woman he loved. Lythieuca, once a lost and broken girl, now awoke each morning in a wooden house scented with fresh grass, feeling a sense of peace. She watched her daughter running freely in the yard, eating homegrown meals, and calling him Uncle Hùng, in a bright, innocent voice. Sometimes she would sit on the front porch, hand resting gently on her belly, quietly watching Hùng water the garden under the golden light of sunset, and her nose would sting with tears. She once believed her life had ended the day she was cast out. But now, she had found a home, simple, yet overflowing with love. And this time, she knew, she was no longer alone. But life is never always smooth, and fate, it seems, never ceases to test those who are just learning how to love again. When Lythieuca was 7 months pregnant, on a drizzling afternoon, she suddenly collapsed with searing abdominal pain. Her face turned pale, her body drenched in cold sweat, and Hùng panicked like never before. He rushed to her side, lifted her into his arms, and drove through the rain as fast as he could to the hospital. Little Tieu Han clung tightly to his shirt, terrified, refusing to let go even for a second. That entire night felt like a nightmare. Lythieuca gave birth prematurely at just 30 weeks. The baby arrived too soon. The doctor said he had to be placed in an incubator under intensive care. She didn't get to hold him. Didn't hear his first cry. All she saw was a nurse wheeling away a tiny bluish figure, her fragile newborn disappearing down the hallway. Hùng stood beside her, gripping her trembling hand, not from fear, but from the pain he felt for the woman lying helpless in front of him. For the next week, Hùng lived 2 lives. By day, he handled work. By night, he stayed at the hospital, caring for Lythieuca, then tiptoeing to the NICU to watch over the baby's slow, shallow breaths inside the glass box. He memorized every doctor's instruction, bought medicine, changed bandages, cooked porridge. Like a husband in every way, though no one had ever asked him to be one. Lythieuca didn't say much. But in her eyes, all hesitation, all fear that once stood between them, began to fade. This man, who wasn't even the baby's father, was the one holding her hand through the night, changing diapers, making formula, rocking Tieu to sleep, and waiting outside cold hospital corridors with nothing but hope. She knew. He didn't pity her. He loved her. Loved her scars, her mistakes, even the parts of her she used to want to hide. After her release, Hùng refused to let her return to the farm. There's no one there at night. I won't feel at peace. You've just given birth, you need someone beside you, he said firmly. And so, Lythieuca was brought to his home, the house where Hùng had lived alone for years. He cleaned the guest room, added a bed, cooked light meals, helped her sit up, washed her hair, bathed her gently, all the small, quiet acts no one had ever done for her with such care. At night, he read fairy tales to Tieu, waited until she fell asleep, then quietly prepared warm water and brought Lythieuca her medicine. Some nights, she woke to find him asleep, slumped over the sofa with one hand still resting on a notebook, filled with scribbled notes about preemie care. Their love didn't need candlelight dinners or grand vows. It only needed one person. Willing to stay awake with you. Through the hardest night. And that was enough. Late afternoon at Lytutien. The sun dipped slowly beyond the horizon, its final rays gilding the cliffs in gold. The sea breeze swept through fiercely, carrying the tang of salt and a biting chill that seeped into the skin. On a high rocky ledge overlooking the ocean, two men sat in silence. Hùng and James. Two friends. Two CEOs. Two men who, by all appearances, stood at the pinnacle of success. But today, they didn't carry the posture of victors. They sat, no coffee, no whiskey, only the sea wind and a nameless sorrow between them. It was Hùng who had asked James to come. He knew, if there was any place that could allow a man to sit in silence without feeling alone, it was the sea. And here, at Lytutien, where sky and earth seemed to blur into one, they could finally take off the hard masks they wore every day. James arrived, his eyes dark, his face drawn. John's been arrested, he said hoarsely. But deep, still hasn't been found. The wind slapped their faces. The sea offered no reply. Hùng said nothing at first. He looked out to the horizon, where waves crashed into the jagged shore, frothing white. Then, calmly, he spoke. Lythieuca just gave birth. Prematurely. The baby's in an incubator. I thought I could protect her, protect them. But when they needed me most, I couldn't do anything. James clenched his fists, his eyes rimmed red. I thought the same. That if I was strong enough, powerful enough, no one could ever touch her. But I was wrong. When she disappeared, I realized I was nothing. They sat in silence for a long time. No comforting words. Only the howl of the sea and the wind threading through the rocks. We, the so-called successful men, can close million-dollar deals, save entire companies from collapse, Hùng said quietly. But we're helpless in the face of the woman we love in tears. James let out a bitter laugh. Yeah. The worst part is watching them suffer, and not being able to do a damn thing. Not even offer a hug, when it mattered most. Lytutien, a place once known only for tourism, had become the refuge of two broken hearts, resting beside each other without the need for pretty words. They stayed until the last trace of sunset vanished into the sea. Only when dusk blanketed the cliffs did James slowly rise, patting his friend gently on the shoulder. Thank you, for choosing this place. I will find her. Hùng nodded. And I won't lose anyone else ever again. A final glimmer of hope began to shine through after endless days of darkness. This morning, the hospital called with news so joyful that neither Hùng nor Lythieuca could hold back their emotions. The premature baby, Lythieuca's child, had begun to recover well. He could now nurse on his mother's milk. Upon hearing those words, Lythieuca's hands trembled. Her eyes brimmed red, her lips pressed tightly as she struggled to speak. It was just a small change, from forefeeding to direct nursing, but for a mother who had watched her baby breathe faintly inside an incubator for days on end, it was nothing short of a miracle. Before she could respond, Hùng was already getting the car ready. "Come on. I'll take you." He drove her to the hospital, saying only one simple line along the way. "From now on, your only job is to rest and stay healthy so you can have milk for the baby. I'll handle everything else." At the hospital, he handed over each carefully stored bag of her breast milk to the staff. He asked the doctors thoughtful questions, checked the temperature of the storage unit, and gently reminded the nurses of the baby's needs. Watching him do all this, calm, meticulous, devoted, Lythieuca felt like she was living in a beautiful dream. She had once believed she'd have to carry everything alone. But now, there was someone who walked ahead of her, clearing the path, shielding her from every gust of wind. Something she had never dared to imagine. And Hùng didn't stop there. He booked a room for her in a 5-star hotel near the hospital. Not for the luxury, but because he wanted her to have warm water, clean air, proper postnatal care, and to be close enough to deliver milk quickly whenever needed. "This place is closer than going back to the farm," he said gently but firmly. "You're still weak. I don't want you traveling far." That afternoon, to ease the stress from all those difficult days, Hùng took mother and daughter out for a quiet walk. He didn't choose a crowded mall or bustling cafe. Instead, he brought them to a lakeside park, where the sun was soft, birds were singing, and tall trees offered peaceful shade. He held little Lythieuca's hand, bought her ice cream, a tiny princess dress, and a pink teddy bear, the one she had dreamed of for so long. Lythieuca beamed with joy, skipping beside her mother and Uncle Hùng, occasionally looking up to ask, "Mommy, why is Uncle Hùng so nice to me?" Lythieuca froze. She couldn't answer. Her throat tightened with emotion, a sweet, overwhelming warmth swelling in her heart. And as twilight descended, with the city shimmering in golden lights, she realized something for the first time in her life. The future no longer felt frightening. Because beside her now was a man who loved every broken piece of her story. Loved her, loved Lythieuca. And loved the fragile newborn who once clung to life in silence. That night, after dragging his worn-out suitcase back to the familiar house, he stepped inside, face blank, eyes bloodshot. Without a word of greeting, he dropped onto the old wooden chair in the tiny kitchen. The musty scent, mixed with sweat and dust, stirred up a string of half-forgotten memories. His elderly mother, knitting in the kitchen corner, looked up in surprise. "Why are you back? Has that girl given birth yet?" He looked up, let out a bitter, twisted laugh, full of rage and scorn. "She gave birth. But not to my child." The old woman frowned, confused. He tossed a stack of DNA test papers onto the table and growled. "That baby isn't mine. She tricked me." The kitchen sank into heavy silence. After a while, he rose, walked to the window, and stared out, where the old coconut trees swayed under the night wind. "Ma. I can't accept this. Lythieuca gave birth to my son. My flesh and blood. The rightful heir to this family. And now she's out there, living comfortably with some CEO." His mother looked at him, her gaze gradually turning cold. "You beat her. Drove her out. And now you think you still have the right to demand her back?" He turned, his eyes burning with obsession. "She's my wife. That boy is my son. I have rights. No man raises another man's child without a reason. That CEO? He'll leave her eventually. I'll bring her back. I must." He sat down again, poured himself a glass of cold water. His hands trembled, from fury, and the need to reclaim control. "Tomorrow, call Uncle Bay in the commune. Ask around. Someone must have seen her. I heard she's in the city, in a hotel near the hospital. I have to find her. I'll take back what belongs to me. His mother didn't respond. She just stared at him, like someone watching a man sink slowly into darkness. Outside, the wind picked up. A rusty metal gate creaked open. A storm was coming. Not from the sky, but from the depths of a man's heart. What will Lythieuca choose? Will she return to the man who once hurt her, her former husband, the biological father of both her children? Or will she stay with Hùng, the man who showed up when she had nothing left, who embraced her past, and loved even the most broken pieces of her? Her ex-husband now returns with empty hands, but he carries with him blood ties and the title of family. Meanwhile, Hùng, not the child's father, not bound by blood, has been quietly by her side, every single day, becoming the rock she leans on without ever asking for anything in return. On one side, a past full of scars. On the other, a warm present and an uncertain future. She is not just choosing between two men. She's standing at the crossroads of life. Forgive, or let go. Return, or move forward. Choose blood, or choose the one who made her heart come alive again. That night, Lythieuca sat by the hotel window, gazing at the shimmering lights of the city. Little Tieu slept soundly in her arms, and her newborn son still lay inside the hospital incubator. Outside the room, Hùng waited in the hallway, silent as always. And somewhere else, the man from her past was knocking, trying to reclaim what he had lost. Her heart was torn in many directions. But this time, one thing was certain, she would not be the woman who gets decided for. This time, she would choose. For herself. And for her children. Will Lythieuca follow her heart or her logic? Can the past still have a chance when the present has begun to bloom? And who will be the one truly worthy to step into that little family? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss a single moment of this heartfelt journey.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa mọi người đến với câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Lythieuca và mình xin lỗi, mẹ đơn thân Lytieuca và CEO Hùng nha mọi người. Thì đây cũng là lần đầu tiên mà mình làm về câu chuyện này, nên có thể là cái lời văn của mình nó chưa có được hay, chưa có thể là hợp với cái nhu cầu nghe của mọi người. Thì mình cũng rất mong nhận được ý kiến đóng góp của mọi người nhiều hơn để có thể hoàn thiện hơn trong những video sau. Và hy vọng rằng mọi người sẽ yêu quý và ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn nữa để mình có thể có động lực tạo ra những video hay và hấp dẫn hơn. Nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình cũng như là yêu quý các nhân vật như là Lytieuca hay là CEO Hùng hay là em bé nhỏ Tiểu thì mọi người cũng có thể để lại bình luận để cổ vũ cũng như ủng hộ tinh thần cho các nhân vật. Và mọi người cũng có thể like, chia sẻ video đến những người khác. Và hãy nhớ rằng đăng ký kênh, sau đó bật chuông thông báo lên để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé.